computer so the viewers can see you. Let me get that all synced up here. I got the computer here for the chat, and they can ask questions of you. Da, 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 da. How's Erin?
She's well. She's living life, and business is good, so we can't complain.
That's good. Looks like you got a beautiful home.
Yeah. No, this is her father-in-law built a what's it called, a in-law unit or a companion unit in the back. Yeah, so it's nice.
That's awesome. Well, we got people chiming in here. 1 second. Computer's still linking up. There we go. The first advertisement that's attached is running right now on the screen. Get this off, and then we'll go. I can't wait to share your story, man, because I've always been fascinated by you. If you didn't know that already, I just think you're awesome. So.
Well, that's very nice of you. It's very nice of you.
Here we go. Skip that. All right. Hey, here we go. Welcome in, everybody. We had some the link got set up almost a month ago, and sometimes YouTube freezes things, and we're working it out. So Omar's holding his phone, so we're going to test those.
Yeah, that's my little itty bitty biceps. No, it's good.
Well, welcome in. Today's guest is, I can't tell you how, I can't wait to share his story with you. All of life, we've always talked about on this show, you get born and you get here and then death, and there's all these million ways to get from the start to the finish, and Omar's story is one that I can't wait to share with you guys. Couple quick shout outs to Bama Techs, Keno Mob Boss, and Mega 23 for the hospitality. We just got back from Oklahoma, and they were so nice to Ellen and I. Just want to make sure I shout those guys out. And the latest news you guys all know, I highly recommend retirement. It's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, it's been great. We traveled around the South. We went Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, back to went to baseball games that they've never been to, went to some taverns, went to Tombstone, Arizona, and watched the reenactment of the OK Corral shootout. Fun as it was awesome. But today I couldn't wait to get back and talk to Omar Passes. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great, Bubba. Thanks so much. Yeah, happy to be able to chat with you.
I shared the link with all your Rolling Hills Card Club people this morning, so hopefully we'll chime in too. So, yeah. Well, boys, now it's Kathy. How you doing? Chris and Rick from Chicago. Queens, hello. What else we got in there? We got. They're all coming in Saturday. Normally I do this on Sundays, but we fit Omar in on a Saturday. So let's get started. We always start, and I know your story's a little different. We always start, where'd you come from? But where'd you grow up? But where'd you grow up and how did you grow up is a little different question for you, sir.
Yeah. No, so I am a San Diego native, born and raised. I was born at what's now Sharp. I think it was called Bay General back in the 70s. My biological mother, which is a strange way to start a story about a person's mother, but I didn't grow up with her. She was from the segregated South and grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, and moved around a lot. Had disabilities and some mental health challenges, and anyways, she had me in San Diego, the fourth of four children in different communities, and she couldn't really take care of me because she didn't learn the skills she needed. So I went into a foster home. Actually, first I went into a place that was called Hillcrest Receiving Center, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was a place when children, they needed a place for children to go when they weren't in a home. And so I went there, and then ultimately a social worker placed me with a home. That's how I got the last name Passones, actually.
Now, because I've heard stories that kids bounce from home to home to home. Was that your experience, or was it your first one and it worked out so well? I can't wait to share your mother's story.
Yeah, Bubba, it's a really good point. I think almost a lot of people's experience in foster care is varied, like young people. And there are lots and lots of kids who have 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 placement for a variety of reasons. And I guess in that regard, I got really, really lucky. I had lots and lots of foster brothers and sisters, but I only had one place. And it was part luck and part the dedication of Tom and Phyllis Passons, honestly.
I want to honor your mom and the family because I personally knew your mother, and got to goof off with her a few times at the card table, and you did too. And I grew up with your brother at SeaWorld. Tom and I go way back. I've known Tom for almost 40 years.
Yeah.
And what you didn't introduce, it's also multicultural family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like?
I can remember when I was, young, going to the grocery store, and there's me, and I don't know if this is a podcast or just YouTube, but I'm African American. I had Latino brothers and sisters. I had white foster brothers and sisters. I had Iranian foster brothers and sisters. And at one point, we were walking through the supermarket, and all of us are calling the same older by their standards, white woman mom.
Yeah.
And you can imagine the looks from the other people in the supermarket, like what is really going on? So honestly, and this is a statement about society that we may or we'll see where this conversation goes, but most of my foster brothers and sisters were Black. And I think that says more about our system's failure than it does about like any individual human being. Like there's a reason why so many parents were in the position that my biological mother was. There are reasons, and I don't think that we have done a good enough job sort of grappling with those. And it's not, I'm not looking at fault. It's like, oh, you did something wrong, or you did. But I think as a society, we can and should be trying to do better.
In your experience, I know we're going to get into your civic leader stuff, and it's vast. Do you think it's improved since you went through the foster care program?
So I would say this: there are a lot of things that exist now that did not exist then. Right? There have been state legislators in California, which is where my experience is most centered, who have changed the laws, for example, to extend the age that young people can get support, right, from the system, from, as opposed to it being like, oh, 18's around the corner, you got to get, to 21 to 24, et cetera. And so there have been, the state, I think, has recognized the need for some changes. There are incredible people in this world. San Diego County's child welfare, they changed the name of the title, Child and Family Strengthening, but their director, Dr. Kim Giardina, is an incredible human being, and leads that entity with an eye towards how do we help keep families together? How do we strengthen, the home family, the biological family, so that they can retain custody. I will tell you. So in many ways, I think it has gotten improved. There have been improvements. I think two things are important to know. One is if you evaluate how society is changing, some for the good and some for the bad, but I think there are more people in society who even recognize the nuances of a multicultural household, the importance of aspects of race and culture in the home. But I think the other thing is just we know more. Child development has come a long way in 40 years, right? Yeah. We know that our brains, especially for, as a couple of guys, especially for boys, but in general, your frontal lobe isn't as all the way formed when you're young and a teenager. So you do stupid things. And then if you come from a situation where maybe you were abused or neglected or what have you, right, you might find yourself being angry, being frustrated, lashing out, and not understand why. And now we can teach foster parents about that information, right? You can kind of understand, hey, don't just give up on this kid the first time some problem happens in school or something like that. You know what I mean?
That is so well said, because the easy way is to go, screw that kid.
Yeah.
And that happened far too often. You and I grew up in a multicultural family. You knew my stepfather very well, and you and I have some connections. But I want to go back. Can we talk about Phyllis Passons, because she was so fun to be around, but a lot of people didn't know that she took on so many roles and so many kids and put them on the right path. And you're a living example of her tenacity and her her lovingness, and I just want you to expand on what Phyllis meant to you.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to spend time with her close to the end of her life,
Yeah.
and and even before, when she used to spend time between here in California and Arizona and Michigan. And when she was here, I would often drive her places, drive her to doctor's appointments, things like that. So we get a chance to talk, and she could sort of reflect a little bit on life. And I would say, I used to say when I was younger that she was afflicted with having too big of a heart.
Uh-huh.
And I said that because, with over 100 foster brothers and sisters, many of them medically fragile, who had suffered their own, like, just horrible, horrible abuse and disfiguration and needs to be in the hospital. And so her world, her life was very go, go, go. She didn't always have time for everybody, right? Like, 6 foster kids, they adopted me. So 7 kids all in the house at one time. There's a lot. And she never complained about the doing it. She always, whatever I may not have had growing up, and frankly, whether we're talking about us, the sort of foster generation of her household, or Tom and Terry, Lil, and Melissa, neither of Tom nor Phyllis graduated from high school. She got her GED. My dad dropped out of school. So they didn't come from money, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, there's a lot of the debates and discussions in our society, in America anyway, they end up in this, like, sort of very polarized thing where all white people are this, or all black people are this, or that whole dynamic. And I think they are a good example of people who just, they wanted to do right. They wanted to live by the dictates of their hearts. And so they took in every child who needed a home, including me.
I'm going to paint a picture for you too and the viewers. Phyllis was not big in stature. She was a little petite little lady, probably 4'11", 5 feet, maybe 5'1" ish.
Yeah.
And but when he showed up to our events and our card games, the whole room would turn and welcome Phyllis to the card table or the meal or whatever we were doing, because she had that kind of presence. You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
affected everyone in the room, and I don't know if you share the same impact from her, but we just loved having her around.
Yeah, yeah, she's. I think she. Uh, it's weird to say this because it's like, just those nature versus nurture conversations. I'm a pretty outgoing guy. I
Yeah,
feel like
sure.
I always have been, but honestly, she was the type who never met a stranger, and so to my dad's, like, perpetual consternation, we couldn't go anywhere without her stopping and having the chit chat, asking people how they were doing.
Yeah,
They always made us late. Oh, they didn't have a great. Well, she did not have a great relationship with time, but it was steeped in that warmth, and I think that's some of also what you experienced.
yeah. The one thing is, my boss, when I did he gave my speech at my retirement thing at work, and one of the most important things I've ever heard is when Bubba asks you how you doing, he actually meant it, and he waited for your answer instead of
Mhm.
how you doing and keep walking. Your mom was just like that. She waited for your answer. She wanted to know how you were doing. She wanted to know, can I help you? And that meant a lot to me when I heard about me. And I grew up in my parents were very civic minded, and worked on their neighborhood. And I can't wait to tell your story, because you've done that since you've gotten of age in adulthood. You've done nothing but help people. And it's fascinating. But I do want to focus back on San Diego. Where did you go to school in San Diego?
Yeah, so I went to probably 3 elementary schools, Holmes and Lindbergh, and then I ended up at a performing arts school that was on in Southeast San Diego.
Yes, still there.
Yeah.
Still kicking.
So here's the thing: when I was there, the school used to be on Skyline, and it was O'Farrell SCPA.
Yeah,
So O'Farrell is still there. They built a campus in, like, 91, I think,
yeah,
in Paradise Hills.
yeah.
I went to the campus from 85 to 90, 91. And then, like a lot of families, I mentioned earlier that my parents didn't come from money. and I would say, if I'm really being honest, didn't have great financial habits, didn't know about really about compound interest. Did
Yeah,
the type of household where the amount of money you see in the bank is the amount of money you have. Like
yeah,
you don't realize that now, as a full-fledged adult that spent some time really thinking about finances and learning and this kind of thing, I understand that you can't plan your life moment to moment, right? And it's there's that saying, people will say, sometimes you'll hear people say, well, I made good choices, right? People said, oh, I made good choices. And I think the better way to look at it is maybe a little bit, but you also had good choices to make. And a
yeah,
lot of times when families are struggling, you don't get a chance to think like, well, what's the longer view here? Right. All I know is how much money I got here. I got to get food. I got to do these things. And so anyway, I mentioned that because we left SCPA, we left San Diego for Arizona when they couldn't keep the house that we were in and
mm,
needed a cheaper place to live. So like
yeah.
a lot of people around that time in the early '90s moved to Arizona, to a
Yeah.
small town in Arizona.
That's still the parade to Arizona retirement life is still happening every day.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Now God, I wrote so much about you. I got to make sure I focus here because there's so much to say. Your mom getting back to me. When did you school? When did you talk about what? I know the answer. What pushed you into wanting to help people? And then from one thing, but do you have a political aspect and perspective and beyond? What pushed you to be a advocate for people?
Yeah. You know, So a lot of it, I think, if I look back, I would not have said, I did not grow up having political conversations at home. That was not a thing. No, there was no time to be, I think, even aware of politics or civic engagement. But what I did grow up with is a lot of love, a lot of awareness of the importance of love, but b an awareness that the tools available to advance, to improve, to get better, to succeed, um, are available, but not equally available. And so it became really important to me. I feel like the government paid for me to have parents. It paid for me to have a speech pathologist because I had a speech impediment when I was a little kid. They paid for my food. They paid for me to ultimately to go to college, or at least part of it. All of those public investments, right, have been long since paid back. And I feel like if we as a society, and this started me on a journey to just wanting to be more engaged, if we as a society basically said, look, the question is not, is this tax, it's so high, but in relation to what, right? If we knew, right, as we sit here today, we knew I could pay 5% more in taxes and we could eliminate child poverty. Wouldn't that be worth it?
Oh,
Right? If we could do like 7% more and not have people on the street because they had housing that was cheap enough that people could afford and be able to get the health support they need. I mean, wouldn't those things be worth it?
wow,
Uh,
powerful questions right there.
sure.
Wow.
I just so that's what I think started me wanting to help, and then I think honestly, Bubba, I realized, especially over the last maybe 15 years, as I've gotten more involved in developing other leaders and developing future leaders, I've realized that a big part of what our society needs is helping there be more people with the tools to thrive and survive in leadership, in government, in the private sector, and so forth.
Yeah, it's weird. I shouldn't say weird, but now people are engaged and trying to get knowledge because we've become, and I've mentioned this so many times, we become what side are you on? If you're not on my side, screw you. We need to get back to doing this again because it's at some point, our two leaders that are our chosen leaders at this point, they're of age. And I just want to say so we need to find somebody in the middle that goes back to common sense politicianing, is that the word, and get both sides of the aisle to go. We're not somebody mentioned the word uniparty as a slight, but I go, we want you to be a uniparty. We want you to work for us. As leaders, we don't want you. You're not there to push your views. You're there to push our views. And we want, like you said, we want to help people if we can. If it takes 2% or 3% or this or whatever it takes to help people of all. I mentioned so many times, from the person who has a dollar to the person who needs a dollar. We all have value every single day. We all want to get up, be productive, see our family and friends, have a dinner, go to bed, and get up and do it again. Um, and that's life in general. And then all this added stuff is like finances or vacations or spending time with family and friends. That's all the added on. We shouldn't be stuck in a grind of just work. We should be. You got to find time to enjoy life. If I'm
Amen to
rambling,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to. I've had the pleasure of meeting your lovely wife. How did you meet Erin?
Oh man, we met. We met on the I don't know in the third grade
No way.
uh, at Encanto, actually, in southeastern San Diego.
Wow.
So yeah, yeah. So we've known each other most of our lives.
So, so you weren't a partnership from third grade to now, were you?
No, of course not. We were 8. You know, there was
That
no thoughts of anything at that age. No. Actually, though, I tell people now that Erin's the first and last woman I'll ever kiss. She was my
wow.
first girlfriend in middle school. So we went to different schools for a bit, and then ended up at the same school for a while, and then we kind of dated as it were when you're that age, and then I moved away to Arizona and went on, and life went on, but we reconnected as adults and got together actually while we were both living in Washington D.C.
Wow, that's coast to coast there. That's pretty
Yeah.
impressive. What's your favorite thing about Erin? What other than being your wife, of course, the luckiest girl and guy in the world. But what about Erin draws you?
But I tell you what, I got really lucky to. I married a just incredibly talented and smart human being who is really thoughtful. Thoughtful when it comes to the people that she is closest to. I think is really true. And I just really I was telling somebody I was at a leadership like cohort thing this past week, and I talk about Erin a lot when I'm in at work, et cetera. And I just one of my favorite things to do is just go for a walk and talk with each other about whatever's going on in life, about our hopes and future and all this kind of stuff. And so I just love that I have a true partner in life, somebody who teaches me, who is there. I think there is no more important, from my perspective anyway, no more important aspect of a relationship than really genuinely believing in your bones that the person you're with has your back. That you whatever you do, the two of you are in it together, and I
Yeah,
think it is so fundamentally important. And one of the things that I think it leads to when you really have that is even the arguments can be shorter and less biting, even the hard ones, right? Because it's real easy to say, especially as you start to get up in age. I'm in my late 40s. You just retired. You start thinking like, tomorrow's not promised to anybody. How much time do we really want to spend on like, did you put the shoe in the right place, or did I get what I want out of the TV we ordered, or whatever it is? These things that when you're together a long time, like they take on outsized kind of magnitude, but really they don't need to. You
yeah.
know.
Somebody coming to my door's up. Yes, I have a screen door though. My screen door is still closed. Um, it's funny because Ellen and I, we've been together. We're approaching our 30th wedding anniversary. We've been together 33 years. We argue about when I'm driving. Park there. No, you're going too fast. You're going too slow. Like it's that passenger. That's all we argue about. We don't argue about life. I have the same. Ellen and I are partners, and my mom, Robbie, were partners, and till the day they passed 6 weeks apart, they were connected. And Ellen and I feel the same way. That's awesome. But to hear it out loud, it's actually an epiphany see that, she's my partner. She believes in me. She's going to back me up no matter what. Golly, those are powerful words just to say that out loud, you know?
Yeah, I think Kathy's point in the thread about choosing your battles. That's
Yeah.
so true, right? Like everything is just not important. Like everything is sometimes, and really, honestly, sometimes if you literally just say, "I'm going to take a beat on this one. I'm just going to take a breath." 5 minutes from then, it's just gone. And I think when you're in the sort of dating phase of life, you feel like, oh, we have to solve this. We have to address this. We have to talk it out. That's not true of everything. Sometimes you can just like, we've seen this movie before. We're
Yeah.
just gonna roll right on through it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Big is, we have a big, like I pushed my retirement up 2 years, and life lined up for me and Ellen financially. And I've
Yeah.
saved since I was 20. She's on a very
Yeah.
good pension right now. And I said, hey, the work life, I've done my job for 39, almost 40 years, and I wasn't enjoying it anymore. You know what I'm saying? I used to love my job, and I wasn't enjoying it in the last year and a half. And I go, let's tighten up the belt a little bit. Let's push this up. Some things lined up for me financially, and I laid it on the table. I put all the numbers on the table. Look, we can do this now. Our bills go down to this. We're paying this out much each month, but if we pay this off, this off, this off, the bill. She's like, oh, and I go, we're there. We're there now. Do I need to wait
Yeah.
till one? And she's like, you're right. We can do that. I put my notice in. I worked 6 more months,
That's great.
and it's. For all those of you not retired, I highly recommend retirement. It's awesome. So
Look, it's fantastic. I spend a lot of time down YouTube rabbit holes on retirement and the fire movement, and the money guy podcast is one of my favorite to check into. There's this one, two sides of five. There are a lot of people spreading, I think, really valuable information that I find I will tell my nephews, my niece, hey,
there's a couple called Our Rich Journey that I watched for 4. They're and Christina, very nice. They're actually becomes electronic friends of mine. I actually talk to them on the side. They're awesome. There's a guy that does. It's called Retire Early at $500,000, and he talks about the reduced frugal lifestyle. And there's a million ways to get there. I shouldn't say a million. There's a lot of ways to get there. You just have to put. I saved since I was 20. I put money in the in compound interest accounts since I was 20. Just you never know what happens, because when you save at 20, 100. That's all I got is $100. Well, $100 becomes $300, becomes $300, $900, $900, becomes $800. And next thing you know, 10 years down, I go, hey, I've saved $25,000. Like, you think that's a lot? Well, now that's become
yeah. Well, and it's funny. So I will say, there's one of the guys on the Money Guy has this beer koozie, and it says this $1 beer cost me $88, and it's a reflection how if you save $1 at 20, by the time you get to be 65, it's multiplied many times over. And it's funny. We took a trip to Portugal a few years ago, and because we were planning it during the pandemic, I started getting into YouTube, and I initially found Amanda and Christina, our Rich Journey, because of their Portugal videos, because I was looking for where do we want to go, whatever, this kind of thing. And then as I watched, I ended up clicking through on a couple of the fire videos and this kind of thing. And then, Christina was a lawyer in California, and the Black legal community is not that big. It's a really, really interesting arc, and to watch what they have built. I'm with you on the way that we can be really thoughtful, even if starting from nothing or negative. It's never out of reach. And that's a big area that I would say I've only recently, maybe within the last decade, really gotten very intentional, but I'm with you on that, man.
There's a riddle that it proves the whole point. Would you rather have, what is it, $20,000, or if I gave you a penny today and 2 pennies tomorrow and 4, and every day the pennies double. So after 10 days, you have like 80 cents. But then 80 becomes $1.60. By the time that the 30th day comes, you have well over this number. So would you take 20,000 now, or would you take a penny that doubles every day for a month? And the number, if you take the pennies, you make far much more money. If you take the pennies, then you just take the flat sum. So
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I noticed Chris and Rick from Chicago in the chat mentioned, the status of Social Security. I will just mention I spent among the many rabbit holes. What's at risk around Social Security isn't the main part. There's this 20% like trust that will be at risk down the road. But I mean that lockbox on. I mean, look, given where most of the votes in this country come from, the chances that of all the things that exist in the society, that's one that we see go away. It seems pretty limited. I would say, but anyway.
Yeah, because like I've heard that the right people will make sure that that exists for generations to come. So I'm still 3 years away because I retired at 59. Blessed,
Nice.
blessed
Yeah.
retired at 59. But I don't get that draw for another 3 years.
Yeah.
So they're saying, what is it, by 2035 that it's going to be depleted? We're
Well, I
all
think
still paying. So whoever,
yeah. Well, and
yeah,
again, I think the depleted portion is just it's just the trust, the sort of or the main portion. So they might take a 20% haircut if they don't figure it out, but the
yeah.
main portion of Social Security is supposed to be around. Anyway,
Yeah. Well, you talk so much about Erin's leadership and thoughtfulness, and I know the answer, but what does she do for a living?
yeah. So she is a leadership consultant. She spent years working for a larger consulting firm, going around and helping companies, kind of helping people in companies be better managers, learn how to leverage their strengths and the things that they are, how they sort of inherently see the world to their benefit to improve their work life, the work life of their colleagues, and ultimately to be more productive and engaged. And so she did that with a company for about a decade or so, and then has been on her own for, I don't know, 12, 15 years, something like that.
And killing it.
Yeah, she does. She really enjoys the work, makes a lot of difference, and yeah, we're happy and doing well, I think.
That's awesome. So now we're gonna get to the big. How did you end up in San Jose?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things about the pandemic is that it became more possible for all of the sorrow and trauma and pain of the pandemic. I think one of the things that it did open society to is the notion of well, I could go work somewhere else. I can get on a plane. I can be, people can serve a community and serve a cause, and it doesn't have to be as geographically fixed as it used to be. And so I started looking more broadly and realized that what San Jose was doing. So I work in homelessness. We didn't talk about this much, and my biological mother experienced some time on the street, and it moved me in a way that caused me to first volunteer and join the board of Catholic Charities Homeless Women's Services Advisory Committee years ago, and had been involved, and finally I decided to move my career into a space focused on homelessness and economic equity and youth. Anyway, I looked up and saw that what the city of San Jose was doing with these regional partners. There's this group, this entity called Destination Home, and the county of Santa Clara had created a whole office focused on housing the most needy residents. I just felt really drawn to what I saw as a commitment to act and to push through. The challenge with homelessness, one of many, is that almost everybody you talk to who doesn't work in the space says, "Oh gosh, we got to do something. We got to do something. Just please put it in some other neighborhood. Don't do it here.
Mm.
Like we need more housing, just not here. We need more shelter. We need more individual places for people, but just not here." And what I saw in San Jose were kind of unsung but committed people like Jim Ortball and the sort of public works team and a mayor and council at the time, Mayor Liccardo, now Mayor Mahan, who were serious about doing things differently and pushing to get them done. That didn't mean giving up on things like, subsidizing affordable housing. The reality is, well, we know what the general public, I think, misses most about homelessness more than anything else is just how poor most people who experience homelessness are. Like, I just don't think they realize, like, even before they hit the street, I'm talking about almost no income, like 0 or 5% of what the area people are making. And at those numbers, it's impossible to survive. I mean, Social Security, as we were talking about that earlier, Social Security used to be enough where you could have a very small, like, studio or single room kind of life. It wasn't, nobody was, living high off the hog, but you could live an existence in a home in California. Well, the benefit is not growing nearly as fast as the cost of rent, et cetera, which gets back to a bunch of structural problems. But so you've got people who are extremely poor and no place to be able to live, so they get squeezed out and onto the street. We've started this conversation talking about, my mom. Frankly, either of them. What life would Phyllis have had as an older person, but for having 3 adult children that are more than that? But I mean, like 4 adult families where she could get support. What would she have done on just a Social Security check? You know what I mean? And so, like, I know that's a far afield from San Jose, but I guess my point is we have to keep pushing for more of that permanent affordable housing. And one of the things San Jose was also doing was essentially saying, if you come here, we want you to help our parks department and our economic development department, our housing department and our building department. We want you to help all of us work together to create a better solution. And we are not going to be afraid to take the steps to create more housing and create more opportunity. And so that's how I landed in San Jose.
Because when you started, you said exactly what's happening, and even in San Diego's, hey, we just built this brand new baseball stadium at Petco Park. It's surrounded by homeless. Let's just move them to the next neighborhood so our guests that's going to the baseball game don't get infringed by the homeless community. That San Diego is one of the larger homeless communities. Hawaii has become. I have a friend that runs the Hawaii Convention Center. Hawaii's become a huge homeless because it's a one-way ticket and they get to live in 75-degree weather. They've taken over the beaches in Hawaii and Honolulu. And the economic situation, you're right, is exactly right. The cost of goods and services and housing has outweighed what people are making. What 30 years ago, Social Security was a way to make a living and survive that the government set up long. It doesn't meet the needs anymore. So is it working in your area?
That's a complicated question. And here's why I say that, right? Is it it in your question is doing a lot of work. Is permanent housing helping people permanently end their homelessness? Yes. Is there enough permanent housing? Not even close, right? Are what we call non-congregate or individual shelter units, individual little units, are those working? They're working in the sense that the people who get them are able to get off of the worst conditions of the street, have a door that locks, get an opportunity to connect to services, right? Like these. So what I would say is the pieces and tools that we have are making a difference, but it's not fast enough, and it's not broad enough, right? This is true in San Diego, it's true in San Jose. There are more new people like losing their homes than like they're losing their homes faster than we can help them get off the street. And it's because, and people don't like to hear this, the general public doesn't like to hear this, but there's a limit to what, pick your government entity, city, county, state, there are limits to what these entities can do. And the federal government spends I think it's 0.4, not 4, 0.4% of the federal budget on supporting people's rental, on rental assistance, 0.4%. So I just would say it's hard for people to put in context. So we're doing more. We're trying to do more. We're trying to be aggressive in most communities, but it's hard to get people to understand. I'll tell you, when I worked at the county of San Diego, there's a really incredible leader, a woman named Dr. Piedad Garcia. I loved working with Piedad. She understood the system. She was in behavioral health. She understood the system, but she also said to me when she pulled the data in, she said to me, she said, look, this is the number of people, and it was over 1,000, the number of people who are experiencing homelessness and going to substance use appointments, like from the street. Over 1,000. So people, the general public is like, oh my gosh, nobody wants help. They don't want to. The reality is there are a lot of people on the street who are so desperate for help, so desperate for behavioral health, desperate for support, that they're doing that and then going back to a tent, or a structure they've created. The reality is there are obviously people who, for a variety of reasons, respond differently to offers of help when they're on the street. There's a variety of reasons for that, right? If you got burned by 10, 15 people, maybe you would be less likely to engage as well. But regardless, I think what we're not realizing is how many people would love to get into an apartment, would love to get an opportunity to be able to raise their family, with some basic dignity. We just don't have. We are not investing the level of resource in it to make that happen, and it's very hard for people because when you and I hear $1 billion, $500 million, like that's a lot of money by any standard. But then when I tell you how expensive it is to build or to pay rent, et cetera, like it doesn't add up, and it's hard for people to get their heads around.
Yeah, there's a school downtown San Diego called the Monarch School. It only you're familiar that only takes in students that are homeless.
Yeah.
And they live in the shelters and the St. Vincent de Paul's and all these other things downtown, and they're cared for during the day. But once they leave school and that team practice is over, they're going back and trying to scramble for a bed. I couldn't fathom my children going through something. I couldn't. What's it like for that family the day before they get let go of their housing or their financial situation to the next day having nothing? What is that?
Yeah.
Crush, what crush on the mind does that do to a person? I couldn't fathom it. I'm blessed to be where I'm at, and I think I'm not the biggest religious guy. I'm not the biggest prayer, but I thank somebody every day that I line myself in this situation. I have a great family. I have two fantastic young boys that are well mannered and they love everybody. I think growing up in a multicultural family, all the shadows of racism or looking at that person differently don't exist in my family because I have a Filipino sister-in-law, Jewish, a Japanese, a black, and my family is so cultural. You've experienced it, so you look at people as, "How you doing, sir? How you doing, ma'am?" It's just you and me. I just wish everybody could experience that, but I couldn't fathom.
Yeah. Bubba, it's an interesting point, right? Like, I agree with you. I agree with you in this sense. The more in our society, wherever you are, at least for America, it's true other places, but I'm obviously most familiar with where we are, that people can treat each other as individual humans. I think the better off we'll be.
Yes.
I also think that the dynamic is more. It's more complicated than that because you can be as decent to me as an individual as you want to, right? Or vice versa. It doesn't change the circumstance that my grandmother Henrietta, the only job she was allowed to take in Little Rock, Arkansas, was cleaning a home for 75% below what the area median income was for 52 weeks of the year. The only thing she could do, the only thing my aunties and uncles could do. Right. My uncles had the benefit of the military, so they were able to step up in that way. But I share that with you because her poverty, right, and her mother's poverty impacted my biological mother, right, and the structures that hindered her, right. It's very easy for us as a society to understand. University of California, San Diego is a beautiful campus. It's gorgeous. It was allowed to exist through a government action that bestowed that land on the state and allowed them to publicly subsidize with the money of our parents this beautiful campus that now spits off billions of dollars in economic benefit to the San Diego region. nobody would say, well, we're not responsible for that, so we don't get the benefit of that. Nobody living today would say that about UC San Diego. But
No.
flip that around. Flip that around and ask yourself, right? Our government also did lots of very, very unfortunate things, right? It did create the circumstances where Carrie Bell Carter ended up at an abusive segregated school for the deaf. That's my biological mother. It did create the circumstances where my white uncle was able to get the GI Bill and use it to buy a home that quintupled in value, while my black uncle couldn't use that same GI Bill because of the way the system was set up, right? Like these are not, it's not your fault, it's not my fault, right? But they're realities. And if we can own those realities, we can see those realities, we can understand that in addition to taking each other as individuals and really embracing, we also need to understand the sort of social context that means that, for example, I benefit from being a man. Full stop. It does not mean that like there are not women who are doing better than me. Of course there are. But it means that society treats me differently, that I have different expectations. It doesn't make me a bad person to acknowledge that, right? It doesn't mean that you're saying something bad about me. And if we can acknowledge that you and I have a privilege associated with our being men, right, which is a natural thing we don't have any control over, right? Why can't we also acknowledge that our society has made it harder for Black residents, for Latino residents, for whatever? It doesn't mean you get a pass to be a jerk. It doesn't mean you don't have personal obligation. It just means like, yeah, maybe we do need to do some things a little different, you know?
Sandy just wrote, I honestly don't understand racism. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. If you're a good person, you're a good person. What does your race have to do with it? Well said. You know, it's, I don't want to say it, to me, it's so much more fun being nice to people.
Yeah.
It takes so much effort to be mean. You know what I'm saying? It's not worth the effort because it snowballs where, like, if you tell a lie, then you got to tell a lie to support the other lie. Then you got to tell another lie to support. The hate takes so much effort, and it's like, oh my God, it would if. And then I always say this too: is if we were all the same, life would be boring. Imagine how great it would be. How great it would be if we, like, every day you met, how you doing, Omar? How's your wife doing? And that just multiplied and multiplied. Man, it would be a great place.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter.
I tend to agree. I'm a glasses half full kind of person. I very much enjoy, like we talked earlier, I am one of those people who never met a stranger, right? I think we both are people. Like, I'm a people person. I think you're a people person. And it's, our challenge is to acknowledge the value and benefit and richness of interpersonal relationships, while understanding that the societal context also exists, right? And it doesn't. I don't want to diminish the experiences of anyone, regardless of their background. This is why these are the scenarios where I think race and gender and those things, they do matter. They do have an impact on society, and I don't think acknowledging that requires us to only focus on that. You know what I mean? It's just a chance to be like, okay. So anyway,
started a casino Keno channel, and when YouTube added this split screen, I said, you know what? I can talk to people and have people tell their personal story. We all have a story to tell, and I've gone from people playing a stupid game in a casino to the range that we're talking about now, and everything in between. My favorite part of this whole YouTube experience is I've met so many wonderful people across this country. I met viewers of mine in New Zealand. We're going to go meet a friend of mine in Manila, Philippines here, and that wants to take us around all day because of YouTube. I met someone. We were just in Australia, and I talked to this guy named Stuart Bell. We talked every day. It's about baseball or something, and the connection I make with people, I never underestimate that because it means a lot to me. And this whole forum that we call Let's Meet has allowed me to share so much. The one lady in Canada, Susan VP, her dad was 61 years civil servant for Canada. We always get the Medal of Freedom. It's the highest civilian honor. He got the Queen's Jubilee, which is the he served the country as a civilian for 61 years, the longest tenured ever person in the history of Canada. And then Trudeau and the whole Parliament did this video presentation live in front of his family. She started crying on the camera with me, and I'm like, I go, don't feel sorry. That's awesome,
Yeah.
to hear
Yeah.
these stories, and something as simple as a friend of mine, EJ. He's in chat now. He's a cook at a school or a company. He's trying to do his own business on the side. Just the struggle of life is real, and the interconnection to me is my favorite part. And I can't thank you enough for being here today. And we always end, and not to cut you off, we've been going almost an hour.
No. It's
I tell you, it goes by fast.
yeah.
Yeah. We always ask of our guests, what some word of wisdom that meant a lot to you when you grew up, or something that you can impart on our viewers to close? What's something that you would like to share?
There are two things I think that I kind of live my life by. The first is something that has been woven throughout this entire conversation, and it is that I do not think the circumstances of our birth have to dictate the outcomes of our life, regardless of where we start. I think that is fundamentally true, or can be. And so I work every day in one capacity or another to try to help make that happen. And I think as I have grown as a leader, part of what I really try to do is empower people to use the strengths that are within them to lead their best lives, to be the best versions of themselves. And I think those two things, they kind of connect with each other, but they animate the way I go about life, man, honestly.
That's awesome, man. I'm so happy and fortunate to, first of all, know you. And I told you before we went live, is I've always been fascinated. Your personal story is something that I've never experienced, and it was a great chance to share you today. And tell your lovely wife, Erin, we all said hello, because we all think the world of her too. And we're actually playing cards down in the old house at the Aguilera's house tonight.
Well, given how bad I am at that, unfortunately, we're gonna miss that part. I definitely would not have been a good guest for your the poker part of your show. That's not a high strength of mine.
When Omar played in our game, it was funny. He always super aggressive, and then would go, "Okay, you got me." And then when he had it, he would make these gigantic pots because. But he didn't always have it, but that's okay. Thank you so much today, man. It was really great seeing you again.
Oh, you too. I look forward to catching up soon, Bubba.
I got a couple more quick announcements to take. So Monday morning, 8 o'clock, we have some announcements. Go to the channel. Go to Quick Country Slots channel. We have our big announcement to make. I won't get any more than that. Tune in 8 o'clock in the morning. We're going to do it simultaneously, 8 o'clock in the morning. Something for all of our Keno Nation guests. And I put out a thing yesterday. We're starting a new show called, and we're letting the guests choose the name of the show. Whoever gets the most votes gets a gift pack from our channel. We'll mail it directly to you. That'll be a lot of fun, free of charge. So go to the vote I posted yesterday. It says I need your help. Please go vote. And once again, thank you, OMAR Passions. Man, it's been a pleasure today, man. Love seeing you again.
You too. Take care, Bubba.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching today. Have a great Saturday. Bye.